Welcome back to another open mic here at Cathedral Park Performing Arts Collective. Who would like to go first this evening? Any volunteers? Jonathan, you want to go?
Well, I can go. Yeah, let me. I haven't really, like I said last time. I'll first person out gets to sort of set the tone, but I don't really have a preference of the tone that I set. But I'll start with one that was you probably can guess a little bit of the response to what I was inspired by for this one. Still something a little bit. It's called Bigger Shovel. Man, you sure do talk a lot, but you keep me in suspense. Your mouth runs like a blender blade, makes nearly as much sense. Don't get me wrong, not looking for any trouble. The only thing that I can say, I need a bigger shovel. The words you say come out to play, each one with its own meaning. I can tell that you intend for you to shift my leaning. Yeah, you can. No need to struggle, but to shift your way, I gotta say, I'll need a bigger shovel. The walrus and the carpenter saw the midnight sun coaxing oysters on a stroll, yet ate them every one. Yeah, I'll join with you, even on the double. A walk I'll make with one demand, I need a bigger shovel. I picture that you see yourself in a palanquin of gold, singing to the reflected bird in the mirror you behold. Do not be buffaloed, not just a little buffle, to all the ashes you produce. You'll need a bigger shovel. Now I sure would like to see you off behind me down the road. Put some miles on my feet, walk off this fulsome load. Out to where the air is pure, out beyond the rubble, and plant your memory deep away. I'll need a bigger shovel. Should have dedicated that, but I don't feel like I need to with the recent history, but there you go.
Well, maybe you do, because maybe I don't know. Maybe I didn't catch it. I'm not quick enough.
You might, yeah. I live with a very literal person, so I actually have to explain the idea of. Sorry, honey, it's true.
Chris, did you get it? The references?
Well,
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. Maybe you just don't deal with enough bullshit, Christina. That shoveling bullshit.
Oh no, I got that, but I didn't know who you were referring to.
I
And
thought you meant.
It could have been anybody. I was thinking about uh, a recent very public narcissist that's been in the news a lot in the last.
which one?
Pick one. I was trying to get a little more universal than
Okay,
naming a single character.
got it. Okay, no, I got the reference, the shoveling reference. I just wasn't sure if there was somebody in particular that I should have been like.
If it called anyone to mind, it was that person.
Ah, okay, okay. Got it. Cool. I like the reference to the carpenter and the oyster. That story. I like that story. It's a sad little
You're
story.
literary, but maybe too literal.
I like rhyming buffle with shuffle. I thought that was awesome.
That is part of the one of the fun. I do have fun working rhyming schemes. One of my sisters-in-law is a published poet, and she says, how do you rhyme? Because she doesn't write in rhyme. She
Uh,
writes in whole. She goes, how do you rhyme? And I go, I don't know. It's just a thing. If you're writing for a lot of times, especially writing for kind of song doggerel, it makes sense. To rhyme. Just you're either wired that way or you're not. I think is how that goes.
yeah, I like that line, the buffaloed and then buffle and then shovel. Yeah, it was great. That was really cool.
Well, that's a real ditty. That's just a ditty. But
It's good.
hopefully it doesn't. You don't have to follow any perceived theme in there, Chris. You're on your own.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I got
All right.
one. All right. I'm gonna take my glasses off to read this. I used to make fun of old people that put their glasses on and off. I was like, pick one, take your glasses on or off. And now I'm the guy who's taking my glasses on and off. Now I get it. When I was a kid, I didn't get it. Okay. I just wrote this today, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't really have a title. Maybe moving around, but we'll see. Okay, here it goes. When I was growing up, my family moved around a lot. Almost every year we moved to a new house, sometimes in the same town, sometimes not. At times we moved to different states around the country, and once we moved out of the country altogether. I went to a total of 10 different schools by the time I had completed ninth grade. That actually wasn't so bad. One of my sisters, who's only a couple of years older than me, ended up going to 5 different high schools. I guess old habits die hard because I had moved more than 50 times in my life before I turned 50 years old. I think both of my sisters have each moved a lot more than that. The longest I've ever lived at the same address is 7 years, a record I achieved in my 40s. And before that, the record was 3 years and 10 months. In a different town in California called Atascadero. During that first school year, my parents announced that they were becoming missionaries and we would be moving to Tehran, Iran. We flew overseas in early 1976, where I finished my first grade year and went to second grade at the international school in Tehran. I remember we lived in a very run-down apartment building when we moved to Iran until another missionary came by to visit us and told my parents that they shouldn't live in such a bad part of town. We moved to a slightly less run-down area of Tehran after that. We stayed in that apartment building for another year or so until my dad came home early one day and found my mom fooling around with the Iranian language instructor. He packed the whole family up and we moved back to California in 1978. It was a little serendipitous because the very next year, in 1979, all the Americans got out of Iran as fast as they could in the face of the Iranian Revolution. All that is, except for the 50-odd embassy workers who were held hostage for 444 days. For the next decade, my family continued to move. We went wherever my dad could find work, and the work he found was as varied and as different as the towns we lived in. I remember him being employed at different times as a worker at sawmills and lumber yards, as a prison guard, as a surveyor on a road crew, As a janitor at a private school where we lived on the school grounds for free as a benefit of the job, just like groundskeeper Willie of The Simpsons, if Willie had a family of 5. And my dad also worked sometimes as a preacher at different churches, where we also usually lived for free in the church housing units. At some point in all that moving around, when I was in about 4th grade, only a couple of years after we came home from Iran, our family moved to Williams Bay, Wisconsin for a summer. We moved there right at the end of the school year and stayed all through the summer until it was time to go back to wherever we lived for the next school year that started in early September. I honestly have no recollection of where we lived right before or after that summer, but I remember that summer as being one of the best of my growing up years. We were once again living in some sort of missionary housing unit, a duplex of some sort, and there was a family next door to us who had just arrived from South Africa. They had a son about my age, maybe a year younger, whom my sisters and I played with all summer long. I went fishing for the first time in my life that summer. I've only gone fishing a couple of times since then, and I think that summer was the only time I actually ever caught anything. My dad had found this long stick of bamboo somewhere on the grounds outside of the apartment building where we were living and had made a fishing pole out of it for me. I was so excited. Not only had I never been fishing, I also didn't realize that you could just make a fishing pole out of any old thing you found lying around. I didn't realize at the time that my dad couldn't afford to buy a fishing rod, but he could afford to attach a piece of fishing line to a stick and give it to me as a present. We went fishing the same day he gave me the fishing pole. Since we were in Wisconsin and living on Lake Geneva, the fishing was plentiful. We walked out on a pier and sat down next to an older man who was quietly fishing nearby. My dad baited the hook for me, and then I dropped my line in the water, as my dad had instructed me to do. He and the other guy began chatting, and my fishing line started to wiggle almost right away. I got my dad's attention, and he began to help me pull the line in. There wasn't an actual reel on the pole that I can remember, so we were just trying to pull the line straight up out of the water. The fish that was on the line apparently had different ideas, however. It swam under the pier, and soon my line was tangled all around the leg of the pier. The man fishing next to us handed me his fishing pole, which was an actual store-bought pole, and he and my dad began working to get my fishing line untangled. While they were doing that, I let the guy know that his line was starting to wiggle, just like mine had. He came back over and told me to reel it in, which I was able to do with some help from both he and my dad. I reeled in a very small fish, which I was told was a yellow perch, and which I was also told was just big enough to keep. My dad ended up cutting the line on my fishing pole since it was irretrievably tangled in the pier, and my fishing pole suddenly became just a bamboo stick again. But no matter, I had caught a real fish and couldn't wait to show my mom and my sisters. When we got back to the apartment, my dad gutted the fish, and then my mom fried it up in a pan with some butter. There was only one small fillet, and I probably ate it in about 4 bites, but I don't ever remember having a better tasting piece of fish since that one. Besides running around with the South African missionary kid and catching a fish, I also remember that summer as one of the only times I went to summer school. My parents had somehow enrolled my sisters and me in a summer program at a local school, and we spent a couple of hours each day doing that. I didn't know any of the other students, but I was already used to that, having moved every school year. The main difference at this school was that all the kids seemed really friendly, and the teachers made the classes so interesting and fun. The class I was in was an astronomy class, and we learned all about supernovas and red giants, and that our sun was a very old yellow dwarf star and the only star in our solar system. I was fascinated. I couldn't believe that school could be fun and that learning something could be exciting. I didn't know it then, but I would never again have another school experience as interesting as those few weeks. I don't remember the name of that school, but I wish now I had been able to continue being a student there for the rest of my educational experience. It may not have stayed as magical forever, but sometimes you just need a little spark to get you headed in the right direction. I've moved back to Wisconsin as an adult and was recently remembering my summer in Williams Bay. I was thinking about how carefree that summer was, and that I got to spend a lot of time with both my parents that summer, which seemed unusual, especially because I always remember my dad as being at work when I was a child. While I was thinking about that, it suddenly occurred to me that there's no way my parents could have afforded to take a summer off of work. We lived hand to mouth throughout my entire childhood, getting our clothes from donations at the local church and getting our groceries with food stamps. How could my dad have managed a summer vacation, especially one that lasted all summer long? That's when I realized that he was probably unemployed all summer long, and our family had probably lost whatever housing we were living in during the school year. We were essentially homeless. My dad, being a resourceful person, likely mentioned to someone that we had been missionaries at some point, and we got a free place to stay for the summer while he looked for work. It must have worked because at the end of the summer, we packed up our meager belongings and headed out wherever. One of the last things I remember from that summer is seeing that bamboo stick lying under a bush in the yard behind our housing unit and wondering if any other kids' dads would make a fishing pole out of it or if it would just continue lying there unused forever.
Fascinating story.
Thanks.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Well, it's a very a big testament to your parents that now that you reflect on what might have been have some sense of privation, and that was really just now just this a neutral memory of having a great time as a kid. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So, we didn't know. I mean, I knew we were poor, but you don't know. You don't know when you're a kid. You know what's going on. You just go where your parents tell you to go. Interesting.
well. I think some parents do a better job of shielding their kids from
Yeah.
from having a sense of uh, anxiety about all of that. Because I think you're right. It is sort of the natural state of kids to just accept what is, and
Mhm.
it's usually the adult anxiety that can bleed over and spoil that little epoch of innocence that kids are granted if they're lucky.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just wrote that today. Oh man, yeah. How long did you sit down and how long does that take you?
I don't know what that took me this morning. An hour or so. Yeah, 1 hour or so. I could use a little work. Um,
Oh,
but what's funny is after I wrote it, I read it to Michelle, and I was kind of thinking this, but then she said, "You want to go to Williams Bay?" And I said, "Let's go." So we hopped in the car and we drove down there. We just spent the day. We just got back a couple hours ago. We spent the day. It was an hour away. It's on Lake Geneva, and we went down. And I was driving in. As we were driving into town, I said, "What I remember is on the right on the bay on Williams Bay. It's on actually on Lake Geneva." I said there was a little swing set. It was all by itself. It wasn't part of a playground. It was just this little swing set and a bench, and we drove around the corner and there was a swing set and a bench on Williams Bay, and we went and walked around and took some photos. It was really cool because I said, "There it is!" Like right when we came around the corner, I said, "It's still sitting there, same
what?
thing."
Oh my gosh.
So it was pretty cool. And then we went into a little shop and I started talking to a guy and said, "Hey, I came out here when I was a little kid," and he told me about the history of the store, and it was built. And just was really it was really cool. It was a cool day, and then we went and had a couple beers and sandwich, and it was fun. So we went, and it was really neat to kind of connect with that part of my personality. And I was trying to picture myself, like I was trying to picture as an adult, I was trying to picture me watching myself as a young kid and like see like just this little kid running around happy. You wouldn't have known like what was going on in that family's life. You don't know what's happening with people. It's really interesting.
Yes. Wow. So you wrote that before you guys went
Yeah,
on
I
the
wrote it and
Wow.
then I read it to her and I said, "What do you think?" And then we said, "Let's go. It's not that far away."
That's so
We
cool.
hopped in the car and drove. Yeah.
Are you considering writing a collection of stories about your experiences as a I mean I think I know you are working on a novel or is it a
No,
novel
it's an all. Yeah.
but this is more. like, would you consider creating or writing a book of short stories, or I don't know if they're short stories or essays, I guess, about your experiences growing up? Because it feels like you have a lot of stories.
I do, and I've written a few down, but yeah, it would be interesting to write some of them down. It's interesting to write it in a form like this because this is obviously different than the novel form. Where
Right.
the novel that I've written, that Joe and I are, I've gone through the whole thing at least.
Okay.
Um, and it's different though because it's kind of a fictional character in the novel, but everything that happens in the novel pretty much happened to me, you know. But it's a little bit different of an experience in a way. This seems more personal, you
Yeah.
know.
Like a personal essay, right? Like that's what it's this, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. People publish that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah, maybe I should write a few of
I'll
those.
buy
Yeah.
it.
You buy it?
I'll
Okay.
buy
I'll
it,
put it online.
yeah. Slap a few together and yeah.
Uh,
You know.
yeah, I got a couple. Oh, I should read that other one of these days. I'll read the other one about Iran. Oh, I've got one called Over to Me that I wrote. That's a short story. And it's actually funny because in the novel, my character writes a short story, and it's the short story that I wrote in like 20 years ago. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, you tell a story well and makes me want to read more or hear more.
Thank
So,
you. What a compliment. Thank you.
yeah, no doubt. And not just because I know you.
So how much do you remember about being in Iran before the revolution? Was that you're pretty young, but you have a lot of impressions from that? That must have been.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories. I have a lot of great memories actually from being there. I really loved it. I wish we could have stayed there for a long time. I think I would have really enjoyed growing up there. I loved the culture, just the music was so different. People's radios was playing stuff, just Iranian music that's got a different sound to it. It's not rock and roll, different instruments, everything. Uh, um, it was a huge city. We lived in small towns. Tehran is huge. It's a gigantic city. It just, you know, people everywhere, traffic everywhere. I remember little mopeds, people driving their mopeds, and the traffic would come to a stop, and people on their mopeds would just get up on the sidewalk and keep driving down the sidewalk. You had to dive out of the way because some guy on his moped was like, he didn't want to stop for the traffic, so he just suddenly just down the sidewalk. Um, go into the little. Me and my sisters used to go to the little corner store by our house, and it was just three little American kids. I was like 7 or 8. My younger sister was like 6, and my older sister was probably 9. And we'd walk in there and get our we say Fanta, they'd say Fanta, the orange drink. But it was all the sodas were on the shelf. They weren't in a cooler. It was just sodas on a shelf. You get it room temperature. The guy would open it with a little bottle opener and hand it to you. You give him your whatever your few coins were. And it was always these older Iranian guys, and they were friendly to us. We were little American kids, but they weren't. They were nice to us. They'd say hello. And people talking. People would hang in our building. I remember they had these clotheslines between windows of apartments, and people would hang all their wash out and then pull the clothesline, just like you'd think of like old time New York, like in the 30s. In the old movies, they'd run the clotheslines out, and the women would be yelling to each other across the courtyard, and talking, and all the flat roofs. I'd never seen a building with a flat roof before. So, I have a lot of cool memories like that. Sorry, I won't keep going on and on, but there's a lot that the mosques and everything, the prayer calls in the morning. It just, I was a good age to soak all of that in and make a big impression on me.
Yes, I can relate. I lived in Yemen, about the same age for like a year and a
Cool.
half. My mom was teaching in Sana'a, and yeah, I have some of the strongest memories of my childhood from there because I think because it was so different from
So different.
Oregon,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but in very, you know, a different culture, obviously, but you know, similar in the sense that there's the call to worship, and I think probably my guess would be that Sana was probably a lot uh, not as wealthy as Tehran, and but it still was a really big city, and I went to an international school as well, and yeah, those
We
are
definitely lived in the poor part of the city. Like we were the international school, and I don't know if it was the same for you, but it was all embassy kids,
yeah.
like all kids whose dads were like oil
I
business.
yeah, I wouldn't know what they were doing, but they were yeah, people from everywhere, all over the world.
And our bus would drop them all off at the embassy, and then it would go way, way, way past there, and it would just be me and my sisters at the end of the bus line in the part of town that was like rubble, like falling apart. Then we'd get off the bus,
Mhm.
so we'd go past all these beautiful homes in the
Mhm.
nice part, and then our friends would all get off there, and then, then we would just keep going until the end of the line, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is Yemen a Muslim country also?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep, yep,
The
yep.
the food is the other thing I remember. The rice and lamb. Like you go to a restaurant, you get rice and lamb, or if you went to someone's house, everyone ate on the floor. You'd put the food on the plates on the carpet and then eat with your hands. And if you finished your food on your plate, they would just pile more food on your plate. Like it was, if you were done, you had to leave food on your plate to signal, no, don't put anything else on here. Like every time you cleaned your plate, more food would appear, So it just was really, yeah, a lot of just different, so
Flavors
many
and
different,
smells, and
yeah,
I expanded my my palate for sure, because I think I was very much like a white food eater, meaning like pasta, bread, period. And we didn't, you know, there's only so much of, well, there, yeah. I think that, you know, we were able to go to some, I can't remember what it was, to get like cornflakes or whatever. It must have been some, I don't know if it was at the embassy or I don't know. There was some place where you could get some American type food, like maybe
yeah,
peanut butter or something like that. But mostly I had to eat whatever, you know, and
yeah,
learned how to eat differently.
yeah,
Learned how to expand
yeah,
my taste buds. But anyway,
yeah. That's so cool.
yeah, it's interesting. Um, cool. I want to hear more about, yeah, just write some more stories about that.
Please, that'd be great.
Jonathan, do you want to share another?
I've got, I think, and I think, given the conversation that must have been, I'm gonna invite a guest, a guest singer with me. Ginny's gonna move out of the background and
All
come in here. We're gonna sing one together.
right. Hey,
That's
This is,
awesome.
yeah, this is a song that we've sung. Sort of was a family song. Actually, this is one that Scarlett's dad he didn't write it, but he brought it into the. Got it? This is Ginny, Chris, and
Hi.
Christina.
I'm always in the background, so I feel like I know you.
Um, but this is kind of an old Tin Pan Alley song. I think
It goes way back.
it goes way back, yeah. But it's called. It's kind of fits the travel theme, and if you're going to Spain, there's a little nod to that. Yeah, just the bird with feathers of blue is waiting for you back in your own backyard. You'll see the castles of Spain through your window pane, back in your own backyard. Oh, you can go to the east, go to the west. One day you'll come, weary at heart, back back where you started from. You'll find your happiness lies right under your eyes, back in your own backyard.
Whoops.
Now that we're living in a backyard, we really relate to that song, but
I love it.
Yes.
I would agree, though, it's true. You come home and you're like, yeah, it's good to love where you live.
well, it is good to love where you live, wherever and however you long you're there and where you get there and whatever. It's just be where you are fully is a good idea. Or get out if you can't.
Yeah, yeah, true. If you can, if you can. uh, yeah, that's one thing to look forward to. I think as the spring is slowly coming, is the backyard again. Enjoying in the backyard. That was lovely. I'm so glad that Jenny, you joined in the singing of that. It adds so much, that extra little flavor. Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to share tonight?
No, that's all I got.
Okay, that's cool.
I could do another one if you guys aren't.
Hey, yeah.
If we got time.
We got time. We got nothing but time.
Got another time. This is actually one that I did write, but it's kind of like this time I'll just explain the whole background of this. Uh, this was actually inspired by laundry, but it doesn't really. It only vaguely refers to that in the metaphorical turnaround. But it's called Granny Says. I can see you have worry on your mind. That dark look gives a mournful air. Try a smile as if you don't have a care. Make a place for your joy to find. Like my granny used to say, I hate to see you all that way. Wish I could give a shake, smooth you into place. Life's a tumble day to day, that's also what she'd say. But she'd smile through every wrinkle on her face. Sometimes it feels like only rocky road. Storms always in your face. Might be best if you step back a pace. Check your weight, double check your load. Like my granny used to say, I hate to see you all that way. Wish I could give a shake, smooth you into place. But life's a tumble every day, that's also what she'd say. She'd smile through every wrinkle on her face. So here you go, courage as you start. What you will see nobody can say. It may surprise you along the way, how the unforeseen can open up your heart. Like my granny used to say, I hate to see you all that way. Wish I could give a shake, smooth you into place. Life's a tumble day to day, that's also what she'd say. But she'd smile through every wrinkle on her face. It's a long way from laundry, but you know,
It's a good metaphor.
yeah.
That's good. That's nice. I like it. I like that those words can be used in many different ways.
Who wrote the backyard song? It sounded so familiar to me.
Well, it was actually, it's one of the little Tin Pan. I don't know actually who wrote it. It's really one of those, a lot of the Tin Pan Alley stuff out of the 30s. I think I think Al Jolson did do it in a couple of settings, but several other people did as well. You know, it was just one of those ones that's back in the day when there was a little cadre of songwriters in New York that were just cranking out that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
What was that one called?
it's called "Back in Your Own Backyard." What the "Back in Your Own Backyard"? Yeah,
Just writing down.
Jenny's googling it right now, so
Oh yeah.
it, I don't believe in that much documentation. I would rather just see what I can remember and make up if I don't have anything, or shrug it off. So
Fair enough.
maintain the mystery.
Billie Holiday did it.
Oh, Billie Holiday did it.
Oh.
Peggy Lee did it.
Peggy Lee, apparently.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah. Some of those great old Tin Pan Alley songs, some of the old standards and stuff. I mean, those people really, could just really, they have a lyricist and a guy writing the music, and I mean, they just bang them out. And sometimes they were keepers and had a long reach into the future, and some of them just died on the vine, of course. But um, it's amazing how many of those old songs are just cranked out.
It sounded like one that Woody Guthrie would have sang, or somebody like that.
Yeah, I like I say, I learned it from my brother-in-law initially, and before I left it, and he had kind of a lot of that influence.
I got an answer. Officially, it says it was Al Jolson, Billy Rose.
Billy Rose, of course. Al Jolson and Billy Rose.
But then there's and then somebody named Dave Dreyer.
Then people started
But
changing
actually,
words and
Billy
taking credit.
Rose was the lyricist and Dreyer
Yeah.
was the composer, and Jolson was just the performer.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that was very cool. Yeah.
Well, shall we wrap it up for the night, for the evening, for the week, the month? I guess we're in.
Lovely to have this little small session. Thank
Yeah,
you very much, and
always. Yeah.
enjoy the skiing. I hope we don't have a chance here, frankly, Chris. But that's the the difference in climactic expectations, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Well,
Last year we did have a snowfall in April, which was a shock.
oh, that's right.
Did we?
I
So did
that
we. Yeah.
that wasn't good. I didn't appreciate that. Yeah. That did some damage. That did a lot of damage actually in terms of like trees and because things were already all in bloom and yeah, that was not cool
Yeah,
to say the least. Not
We
cool,
had
Mother Nature.
we had like a tornado in March or April or something
Oh,
last year, and I asked my neighbor, I said, it's a little early for tornadoes, isn't it? In the year? Like, it's not really tornado season. And he said, I don't know if you've heard of a thing called climate change.
I
Fair
I want
enough.
to talk about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
know.
Tornadoes in March.
I don't know
Okay.
if you've heard about a thing called.
Right.
Thanks, neighbor. Okay, good
Yeah.
to
Yeah. I've heard of it.
know. Yeah, all too
I
well.
didn't know. We'd only been here for like 2 months,
Right, right.
and then a little tornado came through and took half part took the top of his tree off. He owns a bicycle shop right next door,
Oh,
and
cool.
the top of his tree, he's got a little pine tree, like a fir tree out there, and it snapped the top off and flipped it upside down and landed it right next to his bicycle shop, leaning up against his right above his window, just
Oh,
leaning perfectly on point on the ground and the limb on the little side. Didn't do anything to his roof, his gutter.
wow.
Just picked it up and went bink, dropped it right in front, and then he just cut it up and
Yeah.
hauled it away. And I thought, man, 2 feet either way, and that thing would, would have done a lot more damage.
Your spirit.
Crazy. Yeah,
Crazy. Well,
lucky.
yeah. I know that we should probably be expecting things like that more and more, but I have to hope that that won't continue to happen. But that maybe that's just uh, naivety. And what's the
You're
other
just an optimist,
Well,
Christina.
thank
You're
you.
just an optimist. That's
one?
not a bad thing.
No.
Yeah.
I'll just keep hoping and keep doing my part to limit my carbon footprint.
What else are you going to do?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what
At
else.
least you're doing that. There,
Yeah.
I fear there are many who are not even making that much of a commitment, which is too bad.
I always feel I can do more, so I will continue to work towards that in the hopes that we don't have catastrophes forever. On that note,
On the upbeat,
yeah. We will be back on March 18th, which is so interesting that it's the same date as it is in February. Got some duplicate dates. Like boop. Anyway, they happen to fall on the
yeah.
calendar. And I guess maybe that's because February is only 28 days, and that's just how that ends up working. Ta-da! So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, March 18th, we'll be back
Mean-
for more.
I'll be
Good.
here. That's the day we leave, so we will not be at that one. That's the day
Okay.
we fly to Paris. So
Have a great trip,
I'll see you
Chris.
guys in April then.
Have
Enjoy.
some
Hopefully you'll come
fun.
back with a story or two.
Yeah.
I know you will.
Okay.
Travel safely. Yeah,
All
travel
right.
well.
Good night, you guys. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
All right.